Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire on SportsGrid. Happy Tuesday to all of you watching East Coast, West Coast, and all around the world. We're live here for the next hour, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern every day, right here on SportsGrid TV, SportsGrid Network, wherever you're listening, watching. Thanks for being part of the show. Another special guest coming up on the program today. Marlins President of Baseball Operations, Peter Bendix, will preview the upcoming season. The Marlins season begins Thursday against the Pirates. Also, Kyle Irving joins us for the latest in the National Basketball Association. And Mike Mazzeo will weigh in on a lot of sports wagering stories going on in professional sports. Some good, some not so much. So we'll dive into it all. And in fact, some of them are even included in our top stories as we begin today. Naturally, yesterday, late yesterday, on the East Coast, everyone was waiting to hear from Shohei Ohtani. And we did, in a statement where Ohtani basically says, more or less, that he never bet on sports. He never bet on baseball, and all of the blame is going to his interpreter, Ipe, who basically took his money, wired his money, and was the one betting on sports, and he didn't have anything to do with it. Now, naturally, right now, Major League Baseball is investigating the situation, and we will see. But for the time being, that is the statement that Ohtani is released. He will continue to play as a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Of course, they already played 2 games overseas, and they will continue to play this week as well. So that's the very latest on Shohei Ohtani. But unfortunately, it looks like we have another potential scandal on our hands here. Now, again, we're not quite there yet, but I'm going to break it down for you as to what is going on. Now, there's a player in the NBA. His name is Jonte Porter. He is the brother of Michael Porter Jr., and he's being investigated on a situation on sports betting props involving himself. In a game against the Raptors on January 26th against the Clippers, there was an increased betting interest on the under for Porter's props that night. They were set at 5.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists. And that night he played just 4 minutes. He left the game. The Raptors said he had a re-aggravation of an eye injury, and he didn't score in the game against the Clippers. He had 3 rebounds, did not attempt a three-pointer, meaning that the under hit on all 3 of those props. 2 separate situations with this particular player. And he also has been now out of action for the team as well under this not quite yet, I guess, investigation. I don't know where we're headed here with this one, but naturally this is a player that is on a very limited contract in the NBA, and so the NBA is going to look into this investigation, increased betting on the under for a player and his own props in the NBA. My gosh, this one probably would be the biggest one of them all, if indeed anything came out of it, so we will see. All right, also this morning, a brand new rule in the National Football Leagues. We were hearing about this, the new kickoff rule is in place. I'll summarize it very quickly by saying, essentially, players are not going to be able to move until the ball is caught by the player who's returning the kickoff. Okay, so that's the bottom line. Now let me go through, because it's going to look different on your TV screen or whether you're watching in person. So the kicking team, the 10 players can't move until the ball hits the ground or the player in the landing zone or the end zone. The receiving team, all players in the setup zone, they also can't move until the kick gets hit the ground or a player in the landing zone or the end zone. Any kick, by the way, that lands in the landing zone, the goal line or 20-yard line, that now has to be returned. And also a kick that lands in the end zone or goes back out, it's a touchback to the 35. Also a slight deviation to the onside kick. When the fourth quarter begins, the team that trails has the opportunity to declare an onside kick to the officials. The current onside kickoff rules would apply. No more surprised onside kicks. Big takeaway there. Got to declare when you're trying for an onside kick. Also, no fair catch or signal is allowed on that as well. Also, ESPN reports the NFL trade deadline has been moved back 1 week to allow teams to assess their teams more frequently, more often, and potentially more trades, by the way, toward the end of the NFL's regular season. In Major League Baseball, as we said, we have opening day coming up this Thursday. Good news for the Texas Rangers. Corey Seager, Josh Young, both are going to be in the starting lineup for the Texas Rangers as they get ready to begin on opening day. DJ LeMahieu, unfortunately, for the New York Yankees, he's headed to the injured list. He's going to have a bruised foot, which is going to sideline him for a somewhat extended period of time. Going to start the season on the IL. Congrats to Jared Jones of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a great spring. The Pirates named him their 3rd starter for their opening weekend. And unfortunately, Brian Wu, one of the better starters on the Seattle Mariners, is going to start the season with elbow inflammation on the injured list for them as well. Last night in the NBA, one of the craziest comebacks of the season. Boston Celtics don't give away games, folks. The Hawks came back from 30 points down last night to beat Boston. DeAndre Hunter, 24 points, a clinching three-pointer with 9 seconds left, 120 to 118 in the win last night. LeBron James, who's played quite a bit, listed as doubtful for tonight's game against the Milwaukee Bucks. LA's been starting Spencer Dinwiddie in James's place in the win against Milwaukee. Mitchell Robinson closing in on a return for the New York Knicks. Good news there. Head coach Tom Thibodeau says he's moving well. Domantas Sabonis last night records his 25th triple-double of the season. That is the most in the National Basketball Association. Lots of coaching moves in college basketball, naturally with some teams being knocked out of the NCAA tournament. We're hearing about this. Let's get to players and coaches there before we get back to the tournament on Thursday. Michi Johnson of South Carolina has entered the transfer portal. He was their leading scorer, 13.8 points a game for them last season. James Madison with a great run in the NCAA tournament. They end up losing their coach, Mark Byington. He's headed to the SEC. He will coach at Vanderbilt. Also, Danny Sprinkle from Utah State is headed to Washington. And in college football news, Trevor Etienne, who transferred from Florida to Georgia, was arrested early Sunday on charges of driving under the influence, reckless driving, and other misdemeanors. And he was released about an hour later after posting bond. National Football League with meetings going on right now in Orlando. Some of the owners and general managers are speaking to the media. The Jets have not found a trade partner for Zach Wilson. Their owner, Woody Johnson, says if they can't find a trade, they'll keep him on the team going into next year. Meanwhile, on the other side of New Jersey, John Mara gives okay to draft a quarterback in the upcoming season. He's the owner of the New York Giants. They, of course, have Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback there. Brandon Ayuk has been the subject of some trade rumors in Orlando. John Lynch poured a bucket of water on those, The GM says that he is not available for trade for the upcoming season in 2024. And also, the National Football League has announced their Hall of Fame game, which is generally the first preseason game that is played in 2024. The game is going to feature the Chicago Bears and Houston Texans, which potentially could be a matchup of course, C.J. Stroud, who probably won't play in the game, and Caleb Williams, who get drafted by the Bears, who, by the way, probably won't play in the game. By the way, nobody ever plays in the NFL Hall of Fame game, but you do get to see the jerseys of the team. So you'll see Chicago Bears jerseys and backup players against Texans players. By the way, this game, the Hall of Fame game, folks, this is the earliest I can ever remember it. Thursday, August 1st at 8 o'clock Eastern. So we're heading. Are they going to have a Hall of Fame game in July? Is that what's coming up next? I don't know. We'll see. All right, big games tonight in the NBA. One of them featuring the Golden State Warriors and Miami Heat. We also have that Lakers-Bucks matchup, which could potentially be without LeBron James. So Kyle Irving is going to join us coming up next and preview those games for you. As I mentioned, we'll preview some baseball with Peter Bendix, president of baseball operations of the Marlins. He's coming up in about 25 minutes from now. Plenty more to come here on NewsWire. We're off and running here on this Tuesday. News notes and all the information and sports betting options as well. As we return next, right after these messages.
He is. He's not in the low block.
Hey,
he's on the wing.
Yeah, but he's back.
He pounds in. He's throwing elbows, too.
That's a man move.
That's a grown man move, but he's throwing elbows. The steal. The foul. No call. No call.
But look
and
who it
Silver
was.
Fox missed another one. The humanity.
In the corner, Caleb Love. The arms are up. Come on, I haven't had a touch in a minute.
25.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Betting in-game, there's a big difference, right? Like the computer changes the number so often. Like, I tried to get this in right now, but in reality, as I saw plus 165 in the arena, they're hitting the shot. And I'm getting this like a couple of seconds late. And even the sports book, like, technology can only travel so fast.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Going to preview some games in the National Basketball Association. We have Kyle Irving with us here on the show. Got some fun games, I think, to preview and take a look at. Some potential playoff teams, some teams that really need wins, and then, of course, the injury bug is biting hard right now in the NBA as we get ready for the playoffs. Hey, Kyle, thanks for coming on the show. Great to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Yeah, we have some potential playoff matchups and a lot of games with playoff seeding at stake tonight. So, if you've been locked into the NCAA tournament, it's a good time tonight to tune back into the NBA.
Yeah, no, definitely so. All right, so here in South Florida, the Miami Heat going to get their annual visit from the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry and company. Warriors are 36-34. And need every win they can for the rest of the season. Let's be honest. They're 1.5 favorites. I guess why does that surprise me a little bit here? What am I missing? The total is 218.5. Heat's 39-32. They're headed toward the playoffs, and usually that's when their season really begins. I guess I could say the same thing for the Warriors too. Are the odds telling us, Kyle, that the Warriors just need this game more? Is that why they're favored here?
I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, you heard Draymond Green last night. They asked him if they're getting worried about the Rockets right on their tail, who have won 9 out of their last 10 games, 11 out of their last 12 games, and all of a sudden, they're only a game back from the Warriors for that last playoff spot. So, the Warriors are feeling that pressure, whether Draymond wants to admit it or not. And I think that's what you're seeing with this point spread here. But the thing that's interesting to me is this is a game that the Miami Heat need really badly as well. They are fighting to get back into the top 6 in the Eastern Conference. They're a game out of that number 6 seed. So, this is a battle between two teams who can really turn it on when they want to, and that should make for a really, really good matchup. I do like the Warriors -1.5 just because they need it a lot more than the Heat do. They need it to stay in the playoff picture where, the Heat would still be in the play-in tournament range, even with a loss. So I'm going to go with Golden State -1.5 tonight.
All right, 1.5 point favorites going into Miami tonight. Now the Lakers will take on the Bucks. And normally this is the must-see TV matchup of the night, or must-stream matchup of the night, depending on how you're watching this. Unfortunately, Kyle, I'm looking at the odds here on FanDuel, and the Bucks are 8.5 point favorites. And I don't know exactly how many points LeBron James is worth to the point spread, but I cannot imagine a game with LeBron would have Milwaukee, minus even 7. I don't think. I think it'd be a lot less than that. I think he's worth a few points here tonight, so that tells me he's not playing. And I would guess also, you correct me if I'm wrong here, you very well more schooled than I am, that if LeBron is eventually announced out, that this line's going to move up even a little bit more. I think it's baked in here. 8.5 is the line right now.
Yeah, I mean, they have him listed as doubtful with that same ankle injury on the injury report as of right now. So 8.5 does tell me that he's probably not going to play. But I still think that's an enticing line for the Lakers just because Anthony Davis has been playing some really inspired basketball lately. And every once in a while, especially on a national TV game, Anthony Davis, when LeBron James is out, likes to have those games where he reminds us that when he has it going, he is one of the 10 best players in the NBA. I think that's the type of game that you're going to see from Anthony Davis tonight, because kind of like I just said about the Warriors, the Lakers aren't necessarily in the clear from the Houston Rockets either. Now, all of a sudden, Houston is applying all this pressure onto these teams at the bottom of the standings. If the Lakers were to lose this game, they would only have a 2.5 game lead with 10 games left in the season. And, that pressure is going to come down on them quickly. So, whether or not they can actually overcome and beat the Bucks without LeBron James, that's going to be a tall task. I do think that line could move even more once LeBron gets ruled out. But, as of right now, I kind of like that plus 8.5 points, just because I expect guys like Anthony Davis and D'Angelo Russell to step up in LeBron's absence.
Yeah, and if that's the case, maybe wait a little bit. Could get 9 or 10, later today or tonight. All right, Oklahoma City's having a great season. Heading toward a potential number one in the West. They're 2-point favorites over the New Orleans Pelicans, 49-21. One win behind Denver. So, based on the play-in situation, we're not really sure who they could end up playing. They're going to have to wait. They will get some rest. What do you make of this game tonight in New Orleans? Does OKC keep it going? I mean, I would not call them the surprise of the season, because I think everybody thought they'd be better. But I don't know how many people pegged them for like 55 wins, 54 wins this year.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. I mean, I was really excited about this OKC team going into the season, but if you told me they were fighting for the number one seed with 10 games left in the year, I would have called you crazy. Oklahoma City is a team that is fighting for the number one seed, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is also probably very aware that he is going to have to get that number one seed if he wants to win MVP. So these games mean a lot to him personally down the stretch, in addition to trying to lock up the number one seed and have to avoid, going into Denver potentially in the Western Conference Finals with them having home court advantage. But the Pelicans, this is really, really just a tough stretch of the season for them, where Brandon Ingram goes down with that bizarre hyperextended knee injury. And it feels like any time that things are going well for New Orleans, the wheels kind of fall off. Somebody gets hurt, somebody's out of the lineup, and they can't catch a break from the injury bug, excuse me. So, I do like Oklahoma City -2, even though they're on the road tonight. I just think that New Orleans is going to take a little bit of time to figure out how they want to operate their offense, how they're going to run through Zion Williamson with Brandon Ingram out of the lineup until he can potentially return in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that if we're talking about like underrated teams, let's talk about underrated players. I mean, Domantas Sabonis, he's a household name, I guess, by now, but I think honestly, Kyle, people would be shocked to have him in the same conversation with this triple-double record with Oscar Robertson and Will Chamberlain and Russell Westbrook and Jokic. I mean, Sabonis has been awesome. Kings are 1.5 point favorites tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. Total is 234.5. And boy, this seems like sort of a coin flip game based on the spread, doesn't it?
Yeah, you mentioned about Domantas Sabonis coming into the break, 53 consecutive triple doubles. That is the modern day record. Double doubles. That is the modern day record, passing Kevin Love. I think the all-time record is Wilt Chamberlain with like 232 consecutive double doubles. So, he's got a long way to go to catch Wilt, but he's playing really, really good basketball as well at this point in the season. This is a massive game because these two teams are tied in the Western Conference standings for that number 6 seed right now. And if Sacramento could get it done, that would secure the tiebreaker against Dallas if they were to finish the season tied in the standings. They had already beaten them twice this year, so the third one would be the kiss of death. That would give them the tiebreaker over Dallas. So, this is one that means a lot to them. Luka has been absolutely incredible since the All-Star break. He's averaging basically a 34-point triple-double. These two teams are both coming off of a back-to-back, so this is going to be kind of a who wants it more type of night. And with Luka Doncic playing the way that he is, knowing what's at stake, even though the Kings are, kind of a prove-it team at this point. They don't get many national TV games. I kind of like the Mavericks to get the job done tonight just because Luka is going to know that if they lose this one, they lose the tiebreaker.
All right, now let's take a look at the Western Conference playoff picture with Denver, a clear favorite here right now. No value here, plus 145. Honestly, it's a lot more fun to take OKC or even how about Minnesota at the 3. Kyle, I've seen some backing for the Clippers there at plus 320. Naturally, Kawhi Leonard. A healthy Kawhi Leonard playing in the playoffs along with Paul George, you would assume this is the run that the Clippers are going to make. Beyond that, let's expand the conversation and show the next graphic here. We got the Kings at 37-1, Dallas 13-1. Phoenix has fallen back at plus 850, but they're 42-30. I guess the odds makers think that Phoenix is playoff tested. They could potentially make a run. You're not getting anything with the Lakers here at the 9. They may not even make the playoffs, Kyle. They're only 28-1. And then, of course, you have the Warriors and Rockets there. If I force you to take somebody outside of Denver, who would it be?
I really think that it's the LA Clippers still. I mean, I know this is a team that, listen, we say it all the time. If they're healthy come playoff time, they're going to be really dangerous and really tough to beat. And when you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, two extremely talented players who are also extremely injury prone, that's kind of the risk and the reward. But Russell Westbrook was back in the lineup last night, even in a loss. It feels like, they're starting to trend towards the right direction of the level of health that they want to be at before they get to the postseason. So if you're looking to throw a dart at the wall and, hope that a team can maybe make a run and knock off the Nuggets when it comes to the Western Conference Finals, I feel like the Clippers have as good of a chance as anybody on that list, especially with the odds that you'd be getting.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kyle, thank you again. Great stuff as always. Appreciate it. We'll check out that game tonight between LA and Milwaukee and some of the other tips you gave on the show. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Craig.
All right. Mike Mazzeo's up next. A lot of sports betting stories going on right now here in the U.S. We've got the Ohtani story, this player in the NBA with his player props, and on ESPN, some interesting comments made from a host too. We'll dive in next.
Where he is. He's not in the low block.
Hey,
he's on the wing.
Yeah, but he's back.
He pounds in. He's throwing elbows, too.
That's a man move.
That's a grown man move, but he's throwing elbows. The steal. The foul. No call. No call. The Silver Fox missed another one. The humanity.
In the corner, Caleb Love, the arms are up. Come on, I haven't had a touch in a minute.
25.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Betting in game, there's a big difference, right? Like the computer changes the number so often. Like I tried to get this in right now, but in reality, as I saw plus 165 in the arena, they're hitting the shot, and I'm getting this like a couple of seconds late. And even the sports book, like technology can only travel so fast.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We've got Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report here to talk about some of the big sports betting stories right now on our show. We've got one in baseball, we've got one in the NBA, and one like as a side note, I would say, from college basketball. But Mike, here we go. Boy, like I mean, I guess this was going to happen eventually, so maybe best to just sort of get these stories out of the way. In particular, this one in the NBA, I know we're going to hit on it, is the one that's the most troubling, at least to me. I don't know how you feel about it, but they talk about some of these things that could potentially break sports betting. Maybe is a little bit strong, but if some of these things prove to be true, whether it's the baseball story, the NBA story, essentially players betting on themselves or causing outcomes of prop bets, I think that could change the industry significantly.
Yeah, Craig, I agree. Just overall, like, it just feels like a potentially damaging day for the industry. Just bad optics all around, like you said, starting with the NBA case with, Jonte Porter. And so we'll see what happens of all this. But, the Porter case, if he, like you said, he was in cahoots with somebody who tried to place a bet. I mean, this, according to multiple sources who told us, these companies had been alerted, these regulators had been alerted that there was potentially bad activity around props from a January game and a March game with Porter. He, the under was bet heavily. DraftKings reported that publicly, which is incredible, right? Usually you think of Jokic, LeBron, Kyrie. Mm-hmm. Those big stars would be the ones who'd be the big moneymaker because a lot of people would be betting on those star players. They had their overs or unders. So yeah, this was, usually a market of maybe $1,000, $2,000 in terms of prop limits, and according to ESPN, multiple bettors tried to place 5-figure wagers on these prop markets, and that was what U.S. Integrity was able to alert the regulators in these states to take these markets down, and they are going to investigate this further. And you hope, like you said, that it's not true, that he wasn't part of it. But if he is, yeah, it's extremely damaging. We look at federal regulation all the time. Is that going to happen? Is there going to be a third party with the leagues being in bed with the sports books in terms of taking the gambling revenue money? I mean, there's a lot of outcomes that could be detrimental to the industry as it tries to grow itself, even if you're trying to, you're a state legislator trying to get iGaming done. Well, look at all these terrible things in sports betting. Why do we want to, add that? So there's just so many ramifications here. The Porter case, really eye-opening. Unfortunate the NBA, since Tim Donaghy, he hadn't really been part of it, at least in the legal era. We'd seen the Shane Pinto case. We'd seen all the NFL players be suspended. We see the Shohei Ohtani story, which we're going to talk about. Now the NBA is involved as well. So all 4 major leagues. Then you talk about Temple, that probe, still probably months away. I heard it could be decided over the summer, that we'll get some sort of outcome there. So whatever sport you're in, there's some sort of scandal. And you hope it, turns out well for the industry, but we'll see.
Yeah, and the other thing, Mike, is I have a feeling there are people watching you and I talk for the past, 3.5 minutes going, what are they even talking about? So let's dive in here a little bit deeper. There's a player in the NBA. His name is Jonte Porter, and he, like all NBA players or most NBA players, have player prop options set at sportsbooks, whether it's DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, and essentially you can bet over or under on player props. Now, this player, Jonte Porter, Mike, in particular, is not a prominent player in the NBA. So what happened here is the integrity with the sports books, I'm assuming, Mike, and this is where I'll need you to dive in more, I'm assuming because the amount of money that was at stake on this particular bet for a player prop was the trigger here, which, by the way, I would add is probably easily investigated because, again, they just find whose account this was that tried to bet it more, start asking those questions in general. And the part of this that makes the story more dynamic is the player did not play in the game or left the game at certain points due to injury or illness. And I think that is the summary of the story that needs to be said before this next part of it is taken.
Right. So forgive me for jumping the gun there a little bit. Yeah, right. So I think for the legal industry, like the best thing they can say is, right, DraftKings came out in a statement and said, well, because the bet was legal and made on a legal book, we were able to investigate and potentially get some nefarious activity. But at the same time, if you're an average fan that never cared for sports betting, now you see all these ads from FanDuel and DraftKings every game, and in-game betting and on the court advertising. You're just inundated with this stuff, and that's where the industry potentially could have some harm, other than the echo chamber that just says every time this happens, well, it's really good that we're able to catch this stuff. But again, as we mentioned before, if this is the player in cahoots with some third party putting down these huge 5-figure wagers, which thankfully the integrity services, the sports books were able to alert the state regulators and say, hey, there may be something nefarious here. You need to take these markets down. And obviously, a good regulator is going to jump on that immediately to make sure there's a probe or investigation in place before that player is, marketed again. And I mean, again, you look at Adam Silver in his spot with this integrity being important to these leagues and so much money being passed around. The NBA projected to make $167 million on gambling this year. Half of that goes to the players. We know that players can endorse sportsbooks and fantasy sites. We know they can have passive investments of less than 1% on sites that take NBA wagers. So there's a lot at stake here, and you could potentially see Adam Silver come down. I mean, if this player is found guilty, who knows? I mean, a lifetime ban or something to that extent, a multi-season ban could be on the table to make an example of this player and make sure nobody else does this, Craig, because it could be extremely damaging if he is found guilty.
Yeah, and look, I would be speculating myself, Mike, but if anything is with this, and again, we don't know yet, but if there is, as you said, nefarious activity, it wouldn't shock me at all to see the player prop market eliminated, Mike, completely. I mean, I could see that being gone. I mean, I've never really had a concern about, point spreads and totals and halves and things of that nature with the amount of money that these guys are making. But this is where, a 10-day contract, a player who's not making the kind of money. I mean, I never thought it would happen. And I still will give benefit of the doubt here. But if indeed this is something that happened, they're not going to eliminate player props for like back end 11th player on the team in the NBA. I think they would just do away with it completely to just eliminate it. But I don't know. We will see. Okay, so our other story here is maybe a non-story. I don't know. But Shohei Ohtani yesterday released a statement saying that he's never bet. He's never bet on sports, never bet on baseball, never bet on anything. It's all his interpreter who had access to his accounts and access to his money, who's sending money to pay off the sports bets with Ohtani's money. We've had people this morning and last night, Mike, that are backing Ohtani, saying this is not unusual for an interpreter to have access to financial accounts for a player. And so it seems like Ohtani is getting quite a bit of backing here, saying that his story is plausible. What is the latest as far as you're concerned with this?
Yeah, Craig, I think like you said, he went all in on his innocence, that he had no idea this was going on, that his interpreter had access to his account, and that $4.5 million debt that he paid to an illegal bookmaker that's now being investigated by the federal authorities. In Ohtani's case, I had nothing to do with that. That was all him. He had a gambling problem. I didn't know anything about it till the team was in Korea for this, opening series, and he met with the team and divulged his gambling problem. We spoke one-on-one, and then I found out that, he had been doing all these things behind my back, essentially, Ohtani calling his former interpreter a liar and a cheater. And so we'll see, this is under investigation with the IRS. MLB is conducting its own probe. So you would imagine if there's, bank transactions that the federal authorities are going to be able to link back and see who was, making these payments. Was it Ohtani, as his translator originally said in the original story, an account that he gave to ESPN? Or is it that Ohtani was just completely caught off guard and his interpreter went behind his back, which was what the interpreter changed his story to after, it was known that the federal authorities were investigating? I mean, personally, it seemed like the first story, would be plausible, that Ohtani would have tried to help out his close friend, and then all of a sudden, oh no, the federal authorities involved. I can't be involved in this. That could be really damaging to my career and could face suspension given MLB rules. But certainly he did seem, kind of shocked and saddened, and his demeanor seemed like a guy that maybe had been bamboozled. So, I don't want to say either way. I think the investigation still has to play itself out, and then. There's no sense in anybody jumping the gun. That's why it was good for him to get out and at least talk. It was unfortunate he didn't take questions, because we don't know, how a guy, as a non-millionaire, a guy making millions of dollars would know that $4.5 million in his account is missing. But as you said, Daniel Kim, who was on ESPN, said, I was an interpreter, and you handle the guy's banking transactions. You help him set up his bank account. You pay clubhouse dues with his checkbook. So it seemed like, the interpreter, at least for other players, that's how things worked. And a lot of us, as normal people that aren't professional players to his standard, we don't know how this stuff works. So, I think let the investigation play itself out. We'll see what happens. And you hope that Ohtani wasn't involved. I mean, MLB has to pray he's not involved. He's their poster child, once-in-a-generation player, once-in-a-lifetime player. And, they can't afford a scandal like this for his involvement. He has to be, hopefully clear of it from their perspective. And we'll see if the IRS and MLB end up clearing him.
Yeah, no, we'll see. We'll let the investigation play out on that one. This is more of a social media story, I think, more than anything else. On Sunday over on ESPN, One of their hosts, Reese Davis, was talking to their sports betting analyst, Aaron Dolan. Dolan, made a pick on the air. Davis made a comment saying some would call this wagering, gambling. I think the way that you sold this is what it is a risk-free investment. Social media had fun with this, basically saying, what is this guy saying? Is he serious? Is he not? And ESPN released a statement, I believe, regarding this as well. I feel like this is probably much ado about nothing, but maybe a lesson to be learned for other broadcasters in the industry, probably, right?
Yeah, Craig, just real quick, I wouldn't be surprised if regulators in like Massachusetts, Ohio, the strong regulators come down hard on this. I mean, Ohio, I talked to them yesterday. They called his comments objectionable. They said, he wouldn't face any sanctions, at least ESPN Bet or Penn, the companies that are in charge of this. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, given the fact he pulled his apology back, that they come down hard on this and just make sure nobody's talking about this, given the responsible gaming language, risk-free, being out of it, bonus bets, no free language. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they come down hard on this.
Okay, we'll see. Good stuff, Mike. Thanks again for coming on the show. Peter Bendix, president of the Marlins, joins us next.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid.
SDSU -7.5, and then Washington State will take on Drake in the 7-10. Wazoo a 1.5 favorite. So we got two close ones here in terms of the spread.
State was one of the top 30 teams in the net rankings, so I think that Drake might be a little motivated to prove that, hey, our conference should have had two teams in this tournament. Indiana State didn't make it, but we'll represent pretty well.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The great thing about Bracket Central, it is that premier second screen experience. You have the screen of the game up on one, us on the other.
Here's the thing, yeah. Just have you can put the game on. Just do a favor. Just turn all the volume down. You have us. We'll guide you to the best. We'll guide you to the game, and I'll give you my coach's take as the games go through. See if we can find some betting opportunities.
Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smarty.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to NewsWire. Opening day for everyone is Thursday in the United States. The Miami Marlins open up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Peter Bendix is the president of baseball operations. He's all excited. The season is set to begin, and he joins us now as he's getting ready to take a look at his ball club here as we open up the season. Peter, it is great to have you on NewsWire for the very first time. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes to join me here today. How are you?
Of course. Thanks for having me, Craig. I'm doing great.
Yeah, and I know there's always a lot of excitement surrounding opening day. I guess before we get to opening day, it's like the first year of the job as president of baseball operations. You are, I think it's a little bit over 5 months into the job. Have you taken a breath yet? Has your first breath happened yet, or are we going to have to wait another 6 months for that?
I don't think the breath has really happened yet, but getting my feet underneath me a little bit, I can say that that's happened.
Okay, well, that's good news. I know the first year is, for at least from what people have told me, is like a whirlwind of so many things that have happened. And before we get to the on-field product, I know so much has happened within the Marlins organization over the last few months with a lot of additions to the front office as you sort of build this out a little bit more than what has been. And that doesn't make enough news, I don't think. But I know that in particular, you're excited. You've brought in a lot of new people to help you build this out for the future. And so could you talk about that and sort of the thinking behind why you made some of those decisions?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it doesn't necessarily get enough coverage because it's not something that is visible to that many people, but it's such an important part of really any successful organization is the people. And right, the people are the players and the coaches. That's the most important part. But the people in the front office as well are a very important component. And so I've been able to bring in a handful of people since I started in November that have been extremely helpful in kind of changing the culture to the type of culture that we want to build here and putting an emphasis on player development, on strength and conditioning, on research and development, on a lot of the foundational things that are really important to build out this organization long term.
And I think part of that goes to what we've heard about. No one's in the building, so to speak, about what happens with the Tampa Bay Rays, an organization that has been so successful on so many levels. A lot of the ones that you've talked about, so many people continue to get jobs who have worked with the Tampa Bay Rays in that organization. And a lot of people, generally, Peter, they stay there. They really like working there as well. And so I wonder from your perspective, is that part of this process too, in some ways replicating a little bit of what you saw in Tampa Bay for many years?
I was really fortunate to work with phenomenal people for 15 years with the Rays. We had a lot of success, and you're right, a lot of people have left there and gone on to other teams, but they've also had a lot of stability. I worked with Eric Neander, their president, for the entire time I was there. Stu Sternberg has owned the team for, I think, coming up on 20 years. And really the leadership there sets the culture. And they set the culture of trust, the culture of innovation, the long-term thinking. Those are the types of things that I think allow an organization to be successful and allow an organization to be a place that people absolutely love to work. And so that's what I'm trying to create here. It's something where people love showing up to work every day. They're proud to be Marlins. They never want to leave, but ideally we have such good people and we have a lot of success that inevitably people will leave, which is a good thing as well.
And, understandably so, when you join a new place, it's going to take some time to get things figured out, organization-wise, player-wise. And so as we sort of recap the offseason, the team did make the postseason last year. A lot went into that. There's no question about it. It's been talked about, a lot of success in one-run games and comebacks and crazy. So you come in, you take a fresh look, a blank canvas, so to speak, as to what you think the team looks like. Your key decisions, it seems like in the offseason, was to more or less keep the guys around who have been there and add a shortstop in Tim Anderson. To me, that was the one significant signing that you brought. As you've looked at it now and you've been through spring training, does that still hold? Do you sort of still feel the same way that you did before you went into spring?
I think I do. I think, if anything, I feel maybe even a little bit better. We've had pitching injuries, which seem inevitable. Every team has their share of pitching injuries. And even with that, the 5 guys that we're going to be rolling out in the first 5 games of the season, even with 3 guys on the IL, it's a really formidable rotation. The bullpen looks like it's going to be in really good shape. It's awesome to see Sixto Sanchez and what he's been able to do this spring and how he's been able to kind of revive his career. And we'll see what happens with that. But he's throwing 98 out of the bullpen. Tanner Scott looks fantastic. Anthony Bender back from injury, throwing absolutely insane breaking balls. It's a lot of arms, a lot of pitching, a lot of young pitching. And that's really what success is built on for any team, is young players and especially pitching. So I feel very excited and optimistic about that group. Of course, there's still question marks there. They have to go and prove it. But we have a lot of talent, especially on the pitching side.
Yeah, and you've been through it, Peter, with in being in baseball so long, seeing in Tampa Bay. I mean, I went into last year and I was looking at the Rays. I'm like, they got Jeffrey Springs, they got Shane McClanahan, they got all these starting pitchers. And all of a sudden, it's like you don't have any of these guys. And so I guess that kind of leads me to the next question, because I'm sure a lot of the folks who are watching the show want to get the very latest update as we head into opening day on Yuri Perez, arguably the best young pitcher in all of Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, I know diagnosed with some elbow inflammation, has been playing catch. I mean, look, I know that the organization has the best interest of the player at all times, especially a player like this. Anything to add to what the updates have been, or is this sort of a wait-and-see approach at this point?
No, I think you summed up that update really well. He had mild inflammation, never things that you want to see in a pitcher, but he got as good news as you could hope after visiting some doctors and getting multiple opinions. So he played catch, felt great, and really it's just a ramp up and see if he's able to maintain each step along the way. You always know with young pitchers, health is fragile. No matter kind of what you do, guys who are young and throw 98 miles an hour, unfortunately, are prone to injury. We want the best for Yuri, short-term, long-term. Think he has as high of an upside of any pitcher in baseball. So really, it's about prioritizing that long-term for him. But in the short term, it's as good news as you can possibly hope for after a pitcher experiences elbow soreness. So we'll get him built up. We'll see what he's able to do and take it day by day.
Again, you're talking about, to me, one of the best pitchers in baseball. Unfortunately, his buddy, Sandy Alcantara, another one of the best pitchers in baseball, out for the season with Tommy John surgery. Real quick, I don't know how much you can speak on this. I don't even know, honestly, if it's been officially announced, but I know that Max Meyer is going to be part of the team to start the season. And, I guess there's a strong possibility, at least for what I understand, Peter, is that he's going to maybe start Game 5 of the season against the Angels next week. I don't know how deep you can get into that, but I would love to know your opinion as to how the organization came to this decision to at least consider him to be part of this mix as you guys open.
Max has been really impressive. I heard a lot of great things about him. Obviously, he missed last season, and so he doesn't have that much underneath him. And to see what he's been able to do, despite not having any pro innings underneath him during this spring, has been fantastic. He looks healthy. He's got a great slider. He's got a unique and really good fastball. And the changeup is a pretty exciting pitch too. So I think there's a lot of room for development left for him. But also I think he's able to compete at the highest level right now. And if there's an opportunity for him, we're going to give him that opportunity while also trying to take care of him for the short term and the long term as well. He's still young. He's not as young as Yuri, but he's still early on in his career, coming off of a missed season. We're going to want to be careful with his workload, but that doesn't mean we can't utilize some innings at the major league level too.
And Max will think that he's going to strike out 17 guys his first time out. Got to guard against that. This guy's a little different than some of the other guys. Let's go to the hitting group real quick, Peter. And then I want to talk about the staff here, because that's a critical part, I think, to what you guys are doing as well. So look, Marlins fans, Peter, they're watching this and they're saying, we know that the pitching is there. Okay, we know this. But Jorge Soler is gone. And essentially going into the season without him, and at least it looks like somewhat of a rotating DH. How is the offense going to look, Peter, at the very least the same, if not better, than it was a year ago? Because that's what the fans sort of were clamoring for in the offseason. You know this, a transaction. Bring in a player. Bring in somebody new.
The strength of our offense is going to be the depth of our lineup. And I do think that that's an underrated component of good offenses, is that there isn't necessarily a stretch where a pitcher can take a deep breath. I think we're going to be looking at, having hitters like Jesus Sanchez, Brian De La Cruz, Nick Gordon, probably in the bottom half of our lineup. And I think that's a pretty underrated component, like I said, of having a lineup that's able to score runs without necessarily having that, 40-plus home run guy in the middle of the order. I think that a full season of Jazz Chisholm, if he's able to stay healthy, we're starting to see what he can do in spring training. He's incredibly talented. He's really rededicating himself to his craft, spent a ton of time in the offseason working on himself, working on his game, working on hitting lefties. And we're seeing that work show up already here in spring training. I think with Jake Berger and Josh Bell being around for the entire season, as opposed to the 2 months that they were here last year, I think that's also going to be a really nice part of our lineup. Bell offers the switch hitting, which kind of allows us to put a lineup together in multiple different ways. Berger's right-handed bat is, we saw what he could do last year, and he's an aggressive and an exciting hitter who can really hit the ball really hard. I think Nick Gordon has a chance to be a really useful, good hitter. We've seen that during spring training as well. And I think we still have, Luis Arias, right? And he's the 2-time batting champion. He's somebody that I think makes others in our lineup better by virtue of pitchers are afraid. Pitchers know that they don't want runners on base when Louis comes up to the plate. He's going to drive them in. And so I think that depth of the lineup is what we're banking on, in addition to the fact that just about everybody I just mentioned, they're young players. They're players who we see getting better. We see with De La and with Sanchez this spring, they're able to do things that they weren't doing last year, and it's really exciting to watch them grow.
In order for this to work, it's got to be some magic here, a little bit again from your manager, Skip Schumacher, who was the manager of the year last year. There were so many games, Peter, that I'm watching in the 6th, 7th inning, whether I'm there, I'm talking to my son, should we go? I'm watching on TV, should we shut it? that would have been a terrible decision last year. He had that team fighting so hard at the end of last year. I'm sure that that's a big part of how this can be a success again, is getting him right back where he was a year ago in lockstep.
Absolutely. Skip has been a pleasure to work with so far. You see why the team was so successful last year. He gets them to truly believe in themselves and to never think that they're out of a game. The cohesion of the group, the camaraderie of the group, the players, the coaches, they work incredibly hard, but they also know how to have fun. It's really a great culture. It's really a great place to play for these players. And I think that really helps get the best out of them.
And it's going to be a very interesting year. I will be watching very closely, of course, in person and on television and on radio too, Peter. But, naturally, great to have you here for the first time on NewsWire. I wish you all the best success this season. I know I will be seeing you at the ballpark throughout the year, and I want to thank you so much for giving me a few minutes here on the show. Thanks again.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Craig.
All right, Peter Bendix, president of baseball operations of the Miami Marlins. It all begins for the Marlins Thursday afternoon against the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right, we'll take a quick time out here. More NewsWire coming your way right after these quick messages as we get ready to wrap it up with a final thought. Don't go away.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the Purdue that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid.
SDSU -7.5, and then Washington State will take on Drake in the 7-10. Wazoo a 1.5 favorite. So we got two close ones here in terms of the spread.
State was one of the top 30 teams in the net rankings, so I think that Drake might be a little motivated to prove that, hey, our conference should have had two teams in this tournament. Indiana State didn't make it, but we'll represent pretty well.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The great thing about Bracket Central, it is that premier second screen experience. You have the screen of the game up on one, us on the other.
Here's the thing, just have you can put the game on. Just do a favor. Just turn all the volume down. You have us. We'll guide you to the best. We'll guide you to the game, and I'll give you my coach's take as the games go through. See if we can find some betting opportunities.
Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smarty.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we wrap up the show today, the top story in sports is, of course, Shohei Ohtani as he gets ready to play Game 3 of the Major League Baseball season. They've already played 2 games without his interpreter, who Ohtani said yesterday was fully culpable for everything that has happened as far as the sports bets that have been made and had access to his accounts. And Ohtani says he never bet. I never bet was the quote that his interpreter, quote, stole money. And so a lot of people have asked me my opinion on this, and certainly I can share it. I like to think the best in people, so I'm going to make the assumption that this is true and that Ohtani never made any bets, and the interpreter did, indeed steal the money for him. But again, the one thing that is really hard for me to get past, and those of you who are watching are probably familiar, you have an app on your phone that has your banking app. And I don't know how often you check it, whether it's every day or every week or every month or every 6 months. I would assume it's probably more than that for most of you. Gosh, wouldn't it be something if you just saw some crazy transactions on your app? Would you question those? I would. If I saw a lot of money being removed from my account, I think I would probably have to ask, where is this going? I mean, to me, that is the only thing that is holding me back on this story from full believing in Shohei Ohtani. So hopefully baseball does their investigation and they find this to be nothing and indeed just the interpreter here. But that's the last piece of information that is sort of bothering me here, is him just being completely unaware that $500,000 was going somewhere else from his account. But anyway, that'll do it for the show. Thanks again for Marlins president Peter Bendix for coming on. Also Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report and Kyle Irving covering the NBA for Sporting News. Our associate producer Frank and our producer Mike Cohen. I'm Craig Mish. I'll be back on the show with you tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. Our baseball previews continue. Tomorrow on the show, Vice President of Baseball Operations and General Manager of one of the teams favored potentially to win the World Series. We got the great Mike Elias is going to be preview the Orioles with us tomorrow at 11:40 a.m. Eastern. So we continue to deliver here for you on the show, getting you ready for opening day on Thursday. Until then, hopefully you enjoy your night. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. NewsWire's on deck for the Wednesday edition. See you then.